Hello everyone. Let us take up a new topic today, that is drug interaction, which is also one of the aspects of pharmacodynamics. So it's related to pharmacodynamics because here the drug actions may be altered. Here the drug effects may be altered. One drug may alter the effects which are shown by another drug. Okay, so uh, it's related to the pharmacodynamics of a particular drug, okay, especially when more than one drugs are administered simultaneously. Now let us come to the definition of drug interaction. So it refers to the modification of the response to one drug by another drug when they are administered simultaneously. So one drug can alter the actions of another drug when they are administered simultaneously or they are administered in quick succession, that is one after the other. Maybe they are different formulations, but if you take them together, so if you take one tablet and immediately if you take the second one, obviously they will enter your body simultaneously, right? So there they may interact, okay, once within the body, or sometimes maybe the drug also interact before they are absorbed systemically also. Okay, so usually interaction takes place between more than one drugs when they are administered simultaneously or in quick succession. Okay, now the type of modification of the effects which are shown, it may be either quantitative or qualitative. Okay. Quantitative means either the response, the amount of response which is produced. We have seen earlier in the kinetics also that a particular amount of drug in the blood will produce a certain amount of response, right? A certain level of response will be produced. Okay, so qualitative alteration means what? When one drug either increase or decrease the intensity of a response of another drug. So that time you can say that these interactions are quantitative type of interactions. Secondly, these interactions can be also of qualitative type. That is, one drug can altogether change the type of response which is produced by a drug. Okay, so maybe an abnormal response which is not even related to that particular drug may be produced, okay, or some different type of response may also be produced. Okay, so here there is a change in the type of response which is shown by the drug. Here there is no change in the type of response. The response remains the same. Only thing is its intensity is increase or decrease. That's why it is known as quantitative type of interactions. Now, the chances of interactions increase when a particular patient receives more than one drug, or when the person is on the multiple drug therapy. Okay, so number of drugs may be taken together, maybe for the same condition, or sometimes the patients may suffer from more than one type of disease at a time. Okay, so he or she may be taking medications for both the types of conditions. Okay, so here also there are chances of interaction. Also the chances of interactions increase in the elderlies also, because they are even in case of pediatrics also, the small infants or small children, okay, because altogether their body physiology changes. Okay, so there are chances of interactions may occur in such individuals. Okay, now drug interactions are not ideal actually. Okay, that is, one drug if it interacts with another one, it is not advisable, but in certain cases there are some drug interactions which are desirable. That is, that interaction will be beneficial to the patient in one way or the other. Okay, so such type of interactions are deliberately employed in the therapeutics. That is, you purposefully administer those two drugs together so that they can interact, so that the desirable effects are produced. Okay, mostly these type of interactions may lead to synergistic action. Okay, we have seen synergism and antagonism in the earlier lectures of pharmacodynamics. Okay, so synergistic means what? One drug enhances the action of another drug. Okay, so synergistic action of say AC inhibitors plus diuretics. This is used to treat the hypertension. We have seen several advantages of synergism. So it will reduce the individual doses of these drugs. Okay, side effects may be different, so they may not add up. Only their effects will add up. Okay, so less amount of drug may be required to produce the same amount of action. Okay, or one drug may enhance the action of another drug. Okay. Likewise, another example of synergistic action is sulfamethoxazole and trimethoprim to treat the bacterial infection. Sequential block they cause. Then synergistic action of furosemide and amiloride to prevent the hypokalemia. Okay, so this drug is given, amiloride is given to prevent this hypokalemia, which is a side effect which may be caused by furosemide. So it's a complication of furosemide. So that can be minimized by administering another drug. So also both are diuretics, so they will produce synergistic action. Okay, so interactions, these interactions are well recognized and they are beneficial towards the patient, and they do not pose any risk to that particular patient. So these are ideal and these are desirable and these are deliberately employed. There are several such interactions which are deliberately instituted in certain individuals. Now, before going into the actual types of drug interactions, let us see which are the types of drugs which are likely to show drug interactions. So, drug interactions may be seen with administration of such drugs which have narrow safety margin. Okay, we have seen that there is a particular maximum level of your plasma concentration. If you cross beyond that, certain drug may start precipitating the toxic effects. Okay, at certain higher doses, toxic effects may be precipitated or undesirable effects may be seen. Okay, so there are certain drugs which have narrow safety margin. Okay, that is the range of the dose or the plasma concentration in which they show therapeutic effect. This is quite narrow. Okay, so very small range of plasma concentration produces the actual action. So if you cross that level little bit, it may result in precipitation of the toxic effects, or there may be chances of drug interactions wherein adverse effects may be precipitated. So drugs like aminoglycosides or the digoxin, lithium, these are the drugs which are having narrow safety margin. Again, the types of drugs which are affecting closely regulated body functions, like say antihypertensive, these regulate the BP, right? Okay, or anti-diabetics, these regulate the blood glucose level, or anticoagulant drugs. Okay, so these prevent the coagulation of the blood. Okay, so in the intact blood vessels. Okay, or maybe in vitro also. Okay, so such type of drugs which regulate the body functions, certain critical body functions. So such type of drugs are also liable for drug interactions. Then such drugs which are highly bound to plasma proteins, like say NSAIDs or oral anticoagulants or sulfonylurea. So there are greater chances of drug interactions, displacement interactions may take place. Then the drugs which are metabolized by saturation kinetics, that is the zero order kinetics. Okay, so such type of drugs may also result in interactions. Okay, drugs like phenytoin or theophylline, because their metabolism may get saturated over a period of time. So there may be chances of drug interactions. One drug may interact with the another drug, specifically if there is a competition between the two. Okay, then coming to the actual mechanisms of drug interaction. So basically these drug interactions can be divided into two types, that is pharmacokinetic interactions and pharmacodynamic interactions. Now apart from these, there are certain types of interactions which have complex mechanism. Okay, these may not be well understood. Okay, so mechanisms are not known for such type of interactions. Apart from this, there are certain interactions which may take place outside the body. Okay, so before even you administer such drugs to the patient, the drug may start interacting with each other. Okay, so if you mix them before administering, if you mix them together, so they may interact with each other. This may be due to their physicochemical properties, or they may interact chemically with one another. Okay, so such interactions are also possible before even you administer such type of drugs in the patients. Okay. Now let us start with the first type of interactions, that is pharmacokinetic interactions. So these are the type of interactions which alter the concentration of this particular drug which is interacting at the site of action. Okay, so one drug may interact with another drug, and that particular drug's concentration at the site of action will change. Okay, so as a result of change in concentration at the site of action, obviously the intensity of response will also change, right? Because we have seen that the response which is produced by a particular drug is dependent upon its plasma concentration, right? We have seen the dose response relationship, in which as the dose is changed, the plasma concentration will change, and as the plasma concentration is changed, obviously the response is also changed. Okay, so as plasma concentration is changed, the drug which is available at the site of action, it will get distributed throughout the body, and one of it would be the site of action, right? So at that particular area where it is supposed to act, so if the concentration of your drug is changing in this site, obviously the intensity of response will also change. That's what we have seen is happening, right, in the pharmacokinetic interaction. So this is kinetics, means how your drug is moving through the body. So it involves several processes like absorption, distribution, metabolism and excretion, right? And of course plasma protein binding also determines to certain extent the three processes of distribution, metabolism and excretion. Okay, so obviously the plasma protein binding may also alter the way by which the drug is moving through the body. Okay, and obviously it will alter the kinetics of that particular drug. Okay, and there are chances, if there is more of plasma protein binding, so there are chances of interactions if they compete for the same site for binding. Okay, again binding also will alter. It is one of the factor for these three, because it's only the free form of the drug which is available for distribution or metabolism or excretion. Okay, so binding is one more important factor over here. Okay, now let us see at individual aspects of pharmacokinetics how the interactions can take place. Of course we have already covered most of these, as we have covered all these pharmacokinetic aspects. Over there also we have considered some of these examples and the way by which the drug interactions may take place. Okay, so you can say it's just a compilation of all that. Okay, now coming to the first aspect of pharmacokinetics. So at the absorption level also drug interaction can take place. So how it can take place is when you only administer more than one drug. Okay, so absorption of one drug can be affected by another drug which is concurrently ingested. Okay, so one drug may affect the absorption of another drug when they are administered simultaneously. Now there are various ways by which this absorption can get affected. So the first one is by formation of insoluble or poorly absorbable complexes in the gut lumen. So when you administer two different drugs together, they may interact in your GI lumen, in your GI tract. Before they get absorbed, they will interact, come in contact with each other. They will interact in such a way that one drug may prevent the absorption of another drug, or both the drug will prevent each other's absorption. Okay, so the entry of the drug itself is prevented. Okay, so the example of this include the tetracyclines and calcium or iron salts and antacids or sucralfate. So they form the complexes. Okay, so as a result of this, the drug is not able to be absorbed. So also interaction may take place between phenytoin and sucralfate. Okay, phenytoin absorption is decreased by sucralfate because of binding. They may bind with each other, so absorption of phenytoin is affected. So these are not supposed to be administered together because of the drug interaction. Now one simple way by which this particular type of interaction can be prevented is by staggered administration. Okay, so this can be minimized if you administer these two drugs with a gap of 2 to 3 hours, right? Because you know that the gastric emptying time is 2 hours, right? So after 2 hours that drug will reach into the small intestine. So after that you can give the second drug, so there will be the chances of interactions will be ruled out. Okay, so they will not come in contact with each other in the GIT. So as a result of this, the interaction can be minimized. Okay. Another way by which the interaction can take place at the absorption level is by decrease in the gastric acidity. Okay, so because of the change in the acidity, the ionization state of a particular drug may be altered, or the solubility of a particular drug may be altered. Okay, as a result of this, the absorption of certain drugs may not take place because of the change in the acidity. Okay, some drug solubility is dependent upon the pH. They get solubilized or they will dissolve in the aqueous medium only at a particular pH, right? Okay, say for example in case of ketoconazole, its absorption is reduced by H2 blockers and proton pump inhibitors. Okay, these are the drugs which reduce the gastric acidity. Okay, that is, they increase the pH. So as a result of this, they will retard the dissolution of this ketoconazole. So therefore, the absorption of ketoconazole will not take place. Okay. Again, another type of interaction is because of the reduced gut flora. Okay. Certain antibiotics like ampicillin or tetracyclines, cotrimoxazole, these reduce the gut flora. There is normal flora of the GI tract. So these antibiotics may kill those normal microbes also. Now these microbes, they deconjugate certain conjugated drugs, especially glucuronide conjugated drugs. For example, oral contraceptives. These are secreted in the bile in the form of glucuronide conjugates. And the gut flora, it breaks that conjugation, sets the drug free, again which is reabsorbed. So again it will be taken to the site of action, it will act, again it will get bound to glucuronic acid. So this process will continue, this cyclic process, and this is known as enterohepatic circulation. So it can be reduced if the gut flora are killed by certain antibiotics. So this deconjugation of the drug may not take place. As a result of this, enterohepatic cycling will be affected. So sometimes failure of oral contraception may also take place if they are administered concurrently with the antibiotics. Okay. Then next type of interaction which may take place at absorption level is the alteration of the gut motility. Okay, so GI motility, if it is changed, so if the GI motility is increased, what will happen? Your drug will move from stomach to the intestine at a faster rate. And we have seen in the earlier lectures that under absorption we have seen that the absorption of drug mostly takes place from the intestine. Most of the drugs are absorbed from the intestines. So for such drugs, if the GI motility is increased, their absorption will be enhanced. Okay. Whereas for those drugs which are absorbed in the stomach, their absorption will obviously be reduced. Okay, because drug is moving towards your intestine at a faster rate, so there is less time which is available. Okay, so example of drugs which can alter the GI motility is atropinic drugs, okay, that is anticholinergic drugs, or tricyclic antidepressants, opioids, prokinetic drugs. So certain drugs increase the motility, or certain drugs decrease the motility also. Okay, so thereby they can alter the drug absorption. Now the next concept under the pharmacokinetics was distribution. Okay, so this is the next step. So here the interactions involving the drug distribution are mainly due to the displacement from the binding sites on the plasma protein. Okay, because binding, it is the peculiar property of an individual drug. So there, under binding also we have seen that two drugs may bind to same site, right? Okay, so if they are binding towards same site and if they are competing for the same site, and if one drug has more affinity for that binding site, obviously it will displace the another drug which is already present over there, right? Okay, so the ones which has high plasma protein binding, they can displace another drug. Okay, so such type of drugs, they are mainly restricted to your vascular compartment, and they will have smaller volume of distribution because the plasma concentration is in the denominator. So drugs like oral anticoagulants, sulfonylureas, certain NSAIDs or anti-epileptics, so these are tend to have high plasma protein binding. So there are more chances of displacement interaction with such type of drugs, okay, which are bound to the plasma protein in more amount. Okay, now another requirement for this displacement interaction is that one drug should have higher affinity towards that binding site, okay, as compared to another site. Probably they should bind, mostly they should bind to the same site. They must bind to the same site, plus the second drug should have higher affinity towards that plasma protein, okay, for that binding site. Then and only then the interaction chances are there, displacement interaction. Now let's take an example. If a drug A is bound to a plasma protein, if this is a plasma protein and this is your drug, and it's binding to this plasma protein at this particular site. Okay. Now supposing if you administer another drug B, which can also bind to the same site and with greater affinity as compared to drug A. So what will happen? This drug B will displace this drug A. So it itself will go and bind over here and it will remove this drug A from here. So as a result of this, what will happen? Instead of drug A, now drug B will get bound to that plasma protein at that same site. Okay, because B has higher affinity. So what will happen? Drug A will be set free. Okay, and what we have seen under plasma protein binding, it is a free form which is available for action. It is a free form which will get distributed, which will get metabolized or excreted. So here there are chances of interaction. So one drug can displace the other. So it can increase the free plasma concentration of that particular free drug. Okay, so bound drug will be reduced and the concentration of the free drug will be increased. Now, such type of displacement of the bound drug, it will raise the concentration of the free drug, no doubt. In this case, it was drug A whose free concentration was increased, plasma concentration of the free drug. Okay, so what happens is toxicity of such drug, okay, may result, okay, but in such cases what will happen is, now as the free drug concentration is increased, obviously that will immediately get distributed, right, or metabolized or excreted. Okay, so what will happen is, though the free drug concentration is increased, still it will immediately get distributed, right, or it may get metabolized or excreted. So it will change the steady state plasma level. Okay, so steady state plasma concentration will only marginally be elevated. It may not have significant consequences, or significant toxicity may not be precipitated. Okay, so significant interaction may take place only if this displacement, it is accompanied by inhibition of these processes of metabolism or excretion. Okay, so simply by displacement interaction, it may not precipitate a toxicity. Simultaneously, if this displacement is taking place at the tissue binding site level, or if the metabolism and excretion are inhibited, so at that time it is significant interaction which can take place. Say for example, quinidine, it reduces the binding of digoxin. Okay, plasma protein binding of digoxin is reduced, so more of digoxin is available in the free form. Okay, so tissue binding of this digoxin is reduced. Plus, in addition to this, even the renal and biliary clearance, that is its excretion, is also getting reduced because of inhibition of this efflux transporter, that is PGP. So, as a result of this, what will happen? The binding is also reduced, so more and more available in the free form, plus its excretion is also reduced. So, what will happen? The drug which is available in the free form will increase because it is not removed out of the body, and that can produce significant level of toxicity. The next level at which the interaction may take place is metabolism. So, certain drugs may reduce or enhance the rate of metabolism of other drugs. That is, either they may affect the bioavailability. Okay, so metabolism may be increased as well as it may be decreased. So, because of this, there are two levels at which the interaction may take place, or two ways by which there may be changes in the actions of a particular drug. Either it may affect the bioavailability of that particular drug if the drug undergoes the extensive first pass metabolism in the liver. So, if it is inhibited, obviously the bioavailability of that drug will be increased, right? Okay. So, another aspect which is affected is the plasma half-life of that particular drug. So, if the metabolism is reduced, okay, so what will happen? The drug is eliminated slowly. Okay, so this is true for those drugs which are mainly eliminated by metabolism. They are inactivated by the metabolism. So, what will happen if the metabolism is inhibited? So, it will remain in the active form, right, for a longer period of time. So, its plasma half-life will obviously be increased. Okay, and reverse will take place in case of activation, if the activation is taking place with the help of metabolism. So, these are the two levels at which the metabolism may alter the drug actions. Okay, either by changing the bioavailability or by change in the plasma half-life. Okay, so accordingly there may be certain severe adverse effects also which may be precipitated if suddenly the bioavailability is increased, or if suddenly the plasma half-life is increased, and if you are repeating the dose, obviously there will be accumulation of certain drugs. Okay, so there are chances of interaction at these levels. Now, metabolism, as we have seen, it can be either reduced or enhanced. Okay, so we have covered this part also under metabolism. So there may be inhibition of metabolism or there may be induction of the metabolism, specifically those processes which are involving microsomal enzymes. So microsomal enzymes can be inhibited or they can be induced. Now let us take up the first part, that is inhibition of the drug metabolism. Okay, so this may take place if there is a competition between the two drugs for the same isoenzyme. We have seen that CYP450 enzymes are involved in metabolism of the drug, or for same cofactor is required. Okay, so there are more chances of interaction. Okay, if the two are competing for the same process, okay, or for the same enzyme, or if that particular drug is utilizing the saturation kinetics. Okay, that is a limited number of enzymes may be available. So, as you increase the concentration of your drug, the rate of metabolism may not increase. Okay, zero order kinetics it may follow. Okay, examples of certain drugs are quoted which can inhibit the metabolism of other drugs. So, these are the enzyme inhibitors: macrolide antibiotics, azole antifuncals, or chloramphenicol, omeprazole, SSRIs, that is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, cimetidine, ciprofloxacin, metronidazole. So these are the important inhibitors of metabolism of some other drugs. Okay. Now, one more example is quoted over here. The adverse effect precipitated by the statins, which are usually used as hypolipidemic drugs. So these may induce myopathy, okay, that is muscles. they may damage the muscles. So this is increased by fibrates or niacin or erythromycin, azole antifungals or HIV protease inhibitors. Now, why they are worsening the risk or this particular adverse effects which is shown by statin is because all these drugs can inhibit the metabolism of statin. So because of inhibition, their plasma levels may increase and there are more chances of this adverse effects to be precipitated. Now another way by which the metabolism can be inhibited, if the particular drug's metabolism is dependent upon the hepatic blood flow. Lidocaine metabolism is dependent upon hepatic blood flow. Okay, so any drug which reduces the hepatic blood flow, say for example propranolol, it can reduce the blood flow to the liver. So because of this, metabolism of lidocaine will be decreased and it will lead to increase in the T half-life of lidocaine. Okay, so this is another interaction. Now let us take it up with the example. Now supposing if there is drug A which is metabolized to a particular metabolite with this particular enzyme CYP2D6. Okay, supposing if you administer another drug which can inhibit this enzyme, so what will happen? The metabolism of this drug A will be blocked. So as a result of this, what will happen? There will be increase in the level of this drug A. So it will remain in higher concentration. So it will remain in the body for a longer period of time if the metabolism is inhibited. So that's how one drug can inhibit the metabolism, and that's how it can induce the toxicity also if for a particular drug. So there are chances of interaction. Okay. Then apart from this inhibition of the metabolism, there are certain instances wherein the metabolism may also be induced. Okay, the number of drugs can even induce the microsomal drug metabolizing enzymes. Okay, so that's why they can enhance the metabolism or biotransformation of several drugs. Maybe sometimes certain drugs enhance their own metabolism also. It is known as autoinduction. Okay, now this process of induction involves increase in the synthesis of the metabolizing enzyme. So this particular process will take time to develop. 1 or 2 weeks time may be required. After the drug is administered, it will increase the synthesis of the enzyme. So that will synthesis will take some time. So it will take time to induce a particular drug's metabolism. Okay, in contrast to inhibition, the inhibition takes place very quickly because it's just bind to the enzyme and it will get inhibited. But in case of induction, synthesis of the enzyme should take place. So that will take a little bit time. So also when you stop that inducing drug administration, that enzyme will come back to its normal activity only after 1 to 3 weeks time. Okay, because already more number of enzymes are synthesized, right? So upon discontinuation of the inducer of this particular enzyme, it will take some time for your drug to come back or your enzyme to come back to its normal activity. Okay, so supposing if a drug A is metabolized with the help of this enzyme, and if you administer another drug which can induce the metabolism, what will happen? The concentration of drug A will start declining at a rapid rate. Okay, so it will get cleared out of the body in case if it is inactivated. So its T half-life will be reduced in this case. So there are chances of interaction. Maybe your drug may not show effectiveness if it is quickly metabolized by one particular drug, another drug which is administered along with it. Okay. Now the examples of inducers include barbiturates, phenytoin, carbamazepine, rifampin, cigarette smoking or chronic alcoholism. Then certain pollutants, environmental pollutants are also enzyme inducers which can induce the other drugs metabolism. Okay. Even in certain cases the failure of therapy, that is, as I have told you, efficacy may be lost if that drug is metabolized at a faster rate. Okay. So failure of antimicrobial therapy may take place with metronidazole or doxycycline or chloramphenicol. Okay. If these particular drugs are taken along with an inducing drug which can induce the metabolism of such drugs. Also another example of enzyme induction is contraceptive failure or loss of therapeutic effect of most of the drugs may take place if they are inactivated by enzyme induction. On the contrary, there is one more situation wherein the toxicity of certain drugs may also be lowered. Okay, say for example paracetamol, it produces some toxic intermediates. Okay. Now such toxicity of paracetamol is lower in chronic alcoholics who consume alcohol. Now why? Because alcohol is an enzyme inducer, so it induces the enzymes involved in the metabolism of paracetamol. So it's a toxic intermediate which is formed, so it will get metabolized. Okay, so as a result of this, the toxicity, the hepatotoxicity which is caused by paracetamol, that can be ruled out. So it will reduce the toxicity which can be produced by this paracetamol. Then next aspect at which the interaction may take place is excretion. So here interactions are generally involved in those drugs which are mainly actively secreted by tubular transport mechanism. So we have seen under excretion either tubular secretion may take place, tubular reabsorption may take place, wherein active transport is involved. So in such a situation also interactions are possible. Say for example with probenecid, it inhibits the tubular secretion of penicillins and cephalosporins. So as a result of this, the T half-life of these drugs may be prolonged. So this is the tubular secretion of penicillin. So active transport is involved in secretion. This is the lumen of your kidney tubules. So this penicillin is mainly secreted by means of active transport. So if you give another drug, probenecid, it can inhibit these transporters. So as a result of this, what will happen? Penicillin secretion will decrease and its stay in the blood will be increased. So its plasma T half-life is increased. So it's an intentional interaction to prolong the action of penicillin. Now on the contrary, aspirin can block this uricosuric action of probenecid. Okay, now probenecid has uricosuric action, so it is inhibiting this transporter which is reabsorbing uric acid. So it promotes the excretion of uric acid in the urine. So this action can be blocked by aspirin because it utilizes the transporter also. Okay. Also it can decrease the tubular secretion of methotrexate. So this is how it can interact with methotrexate also. Again, one more aspect in the excretion is that change in the pH, as we have seen already under the excretion, that the pH of urine is equally important for the excretion of a drug because pH will determine the ionization state. So if it remains more in the unionized state, it will get reabsorbed in the kidney tubules. Okay. So for acidic drug, if you alkalinize the urine, their excretion will be enhanced. Okay, because they remain more in the ionized state, so they will not get reabsorbed. Okay, so this is generally utilized for treatment of poisoning to enhance the excretion of a particular drug. Okay, now diuretics and the tetracyclines. Diuretics, tetracyclines, ACE inhibitors and certain NSAIDs, they tend to rise the levels of lithium, okay, because they promote its tubular reabsorption. So here the excretion is not inhibited, but here the reabsorption is promoted of the lithium. Okay, so that's how the interaction may take place. Toxicity of this lithium may also be enhanced because its levels are changed, okay, due to the co-administration with these drugs. Then these are all the pharmacokinetic interactions. Then coming to the pharmacodynamic interactions. So these are the type of interactions which are derived from the modification of the action of one drug by another drug. Okay, so here there is no change in the concentration. Okay, but here altogether there is modification of the action. Altogether the action is changed. Okay, so this may either enhance the response, that is synergism may take place when one drug enhances the action of another drug, or one drug can even attenuate or suppress the response of another drug. So such type of interaction, it may result in antagonism. So action of one drug is antagonized by another drug, or some abnormal response may also be produced. Now supposing if this type of interaction, either synergism or antagonism, if it does not produce any adverse reactions, then it is acceptable. But such type of actions wherein it results in adverse consequences, then it is of clinical significance. Okay, otherwise sometimes these are intentional interactions which are deliberately instituted for the benefit of that particular person. Okay, so there are very few instances wherein such type of interactions are harmful, and they should be, cautioned while administering the two drugs together. Okay, so some of the examples are considered over here of clinically significant pharmacodynamic interaction wherein action of one drug is altered by another drug. Now, let us take the first example. So, when you co-administer those drugs which can result in CNS depressant action, these are basically acting on the CNS, benzodiazepine or antihistaminic drugs, say promethazine, the names of such drugs are given, or a neuroleptic or an antipsychotic drug or an opioid drugs, for example morphine or alcohol. So concurrent administration of these, it may result in excessive sedation, respiratory depression may take place, or motor incoordination may take place. So there are chances of accidents which may take place. Okay, so these interactions are not advisable. Okay. Then next type of interaction is with co-administration of alpha-1 adrenergic blockers with vasodilators, AC inhibitors, or high-ceiling diuretics and cardiac depressant. So what will happen if they are administered concurrently? Excessive fall in BP or fainting may take place. Okay, so it is not an advisable interaction. Okay. Then next type of interaction is with those patients who are diabetics, in whom insulin or sulfonylurea treatment is given. So in them, if you administer propranolol, it can worsen the condition of this hypoglycemia. Okay, so recovery from the hypoglycemia can be affected, okay, because of the blockage of the beta adrenoreceptors. Okay, so as a result of this, hypoglycemia may be precipitated in such individuals. Then in case of co-administration of this ceftriaxone and cefoperazone to patients who are on oral anticoagulants, which are given to prevent the coagulation of the blood in the intact blood vessels. Okay, so in them, if you co-administer with these ceftriaxone or cefoperazone, the prothrombin time and the bleeding may be prolonged, okay, if they are co-administered. Next type of interaction is with the use of aspirin or ticlopidine or clopidogrel. If they are administered with carbenicillin together, there may be excessive platelet inhibition. This may result in increase in the bleeding tendencies may rise. Apart from this, one more example is use of antiplatelet drugs, that is similarly aspirin or clopidogrel with anticoagulants, if they are co-administered together. So there are again increased chances of bleeding. Okay. Again, propranolol, and if it is administered in patients in whom digitalis is given, marked bradycardia, that is decrease in the heart rate, may take place. The next type of interaction is with the co-administration of sildenafil by the patients who are receiving organic nitrates. So here fall in BP or myocardial ischemia may be precipitated because both of them will result in increase in the levels of CGMP. Okay, one will increase the generation, nitrates increase the synthesis of CGMP, whereas sildenafil, it inhibits the metabolism of this CGMP. So because of this, it can precipitate the fall in BP or myocardial ischemia. Okay, so it is again a significant type of dynamic interaction. Then next interaction is with ACE inhibitors and the potassium sparing diuretics. So here severe hyperkalemia can be precipitated, that is the potassium levels of the blood may enhance. Okay, so it can be quite dangerous. again interactions between aminoglycoside antibiotics along with those patients who are co-administered with the furosemide. So both of them are ototoxic. So if they are administered together, there are additive chances of this toxicity to take place. So it can be more toxic to the ear, hearing impairment can take place. Then next type of interaction is in between the antibiotics. So beta-lactam antibiotics, when they are combined with tetracycline, erythromycin or clindamycin, their bactericidal action may be antagonized by these drugs. Okay, so they should not be co-administered together. Another example is that of again the antibiotics. So antagonism of antibacterial action may take place of macrolides, clindamycin and chloramphenicol if they are administered simultaneously, because they are acting at the same site, that is bacterial 50S ribosome. So there will be interference between their binding site. So obviously the one may antagonize the action of another antibiotic. Okay, so they should not be combined together. Okay. Then reduction of antihypertensive action of clonidine may take place by chlorpromazine or imipramine, because the central action of this clonidine may be hampered by these drugs. So clonidine may not show effectiveness. Okay, it may not be helpful in reducing the blood pressure. The next interaction is attenuation of again antihypertensive effect of ACE inhibitors, of beta blockers or diuretics by NSAIDs, because NSAIDs can inhibit the renal PG synthesis. So that's how they can alter or they can reduce the antihypertensive action of these drugs. So they may not show effectiveness. Again, a blunting of potassium conserving action of spironolactone by aspirin. Aspirin is a drug which can inhibit the tubular secretion of cannabinol. This is an active metabolite of spironolactone. Okay, so spironolactone, it is a potassium sparing diuretic which prevents the excessive excretion of the potassium from the body. Okay, so as a result of this, it will hamper this action, potassium conserving action of the spironolactone, because its active metabolite does not reach the site of action, because aspirin is preventing the tubular secretion of cannabinol, which is an active metabolite of spironolactone. Okay, then one more example wherein antagonism of action is taking place. So anti-Parkinsonian drug levodopa and neuroleptics or antipsychotic drugs and metoclopramide, if they are combined together, they have exactly opposite action. Actually this levodopa, it gets converted to dopamine in the brain and binds to dopaminergic receptor, D2 receptor, and neuroleptics and metoclopramide, these are D2 blockers. Okay, so they have anti-dopaminergic action. So obviously the action of levodopa will be blocked by these neuroleptics. So they should not be administered together, otherwise levodopa will not show effectiveness. So one drug can even antagonize the action of another drug. Okay, so these are some of the examples of pharmacodynamic interactions. Now there is one more type of drug interaction which may take place before the administration of the drug. Okay, so as I have told you earlier, sometimes before administering, when you mix the drugs together, they may interact with each other and they may get inactivated, or one drug may inactivate another drug. Okay, if you mix them together. Okay, specifically combination drugs. Okay, so drugs which are available in the form of combination, already marketed formulations are available. So these are checked for such incompatibilities. Okay, so usually when they are administered in a combination, such type of interaction will not take place. So they are compatible, that's why they are formulated together. But sometimes what happens is, generally while injecting a particular drug, now supposing if you are supposed to give 2 injections to that particular person. So rather than injecting it twice, sometimes the drug is mixed in the same syringe and it is injected simultaneously. Or one drug may be injected in the IV line, IV infusion fluid it is injected. Okay, so sometimes such type of mixing may be incompatible. So it may result in some physical or chemical interactions. Okay, so such type of situations are called as in vitro interactions. So they occur if two drugs are mixed in the same syringe, if two solutions are mixed together. Okay, probably. Now, some of the examples are quoted over here. Penicillin G or ampicillin when it is mixed with gentamicin or another aminoglycoside antibiotic. They will interact and it might not get absorbed. Okay. Then the thiopentone sodium when it is mixed with succinylcholine or morphine. Okay, so they react chemically. Heparin when it is mixed with penicillin, gentamicin or hydrocortisone, such type of interactions may take place. Or noradrenaline when it is added to sodium bicarbonate solution, again it may interact in vitro. So one drug may affect the action of another drug, or both may get inactivated in this particular process. Okay, so it's better to avoid such type of mixing of two drugs in the same syringes or in the infusion bottle. Adding of another drug to that infusion bottle should be avoided, otherwise such in vitro interactions might take place. Okay. So these are the different types of drug interactions which may take place. So the question which may be asked on this part is a note on drug interactions, or the types of interactions may be asked as a full question. Okay, so you need to discuss what are the drug interactions, what are the different types of drug interactions, and pharmacokinetic interactions, at what different levels what kind of interactions can take place with examples, and pharmacodynamic interactions plus the in vitro interactions also is supposed to be discussed. This is the reference. Thank you.